Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. I have been out for a while. I discussed this in my last video, but we are back on the grind. If you need to know what I'm talking about, what's been going on, go watch the beginning of the Musketeer video. I believe it's the video right before this one. But yeah, so we're just getting right back into the grind of things. Again, thank you guys for your support. Who have, just been around, sticking around, still giving your support through the rough times of no content. But yeah, we are back, so no worries about that. And then we are back with our future fight. So today we're going to be talking about another one of the zoo set decks, which is going to be the Bigbelly deck, G-EB02 Bigbelly. This is the new Bigbelly deck that came out in or the new version of the Bigbelly deck and how it's played after post zoo set. So I'm gonna go over that for you guys as soon as area will let me flip all my G units and stop being difficult. But yeah, let's get right into it. So Bigbelly, obviously the Stride Great Nature deck. So we run 5 grade 3s. You can run less grade 3s in Bigbelly just because of how the early game with Bigbelly works. Also, the existence of this card, Mike Saburo, which searches out your grade 3s. So, kind of running 4 of it is kind of like if you have one in your hand in the early game, you have a grade 3 in your hand. And I'll explain why. So, we start off with 4 Astute Professor Bigbelly. This is our main grade 3 that we want to ride into. It has 3 abilities. The first one is a Vanguard Rearguard Success skill, Success 20,000. Success is the keyword for Great Nature. Basically, when any Rearguard reaches a certain number, or Vanguard reaches a certain number, then when it surpasses that number or meets that number, then all of the units with that number on it become successful. I might have explained that in a weird way. So, for example, if you have your Vanguard, which is Bigbelly, and then you have a Rearguard, which is like an Otter or something like that. Otter is 9k by itself. However, it does give 4k to something when it's placed. So, let's say you give 4k to this grade 1, and the grade 1 is behind Field Glass Otter. Well, when you boost with Mao, physical action Mauche, this card right here, it'll be 11 plus 9, and it'll reach 20, which means that everything that says success 20 on it automatically becomes successful state until the end of the turn. So it is very important to keep that in mind because some effects require you to be successful, some don't, etc. So the second skill of Bigbelly is the Stride skill. It says auto Vanguard skill once per turn. When this unit is placed on Vanguard circle or when your G unit strides, you can choose up to 1 card from your hand, call it to Rearguard circle, and it gets plus 4,000 power. If you called a card, then at the end of the turn you draw a card and you retire the Rearguard that you gave plus 4,000 to. Pretty good, honestly. Just a really good starting off skill for the Stride skill for your turns. Helps you draw a little at the end of your turn. You don't draw like a whole bunch at the end of your turns, but you get the additional padding that you need to survive the turns sometimes. Then the third skill is kind of like a pseudo Crayon Tiger, but Crayon Tiger is still better because you still get to draw off of Crayon Tiger's skill. But yeah, the third skill is Vanguard Rearguard Circle, Generation Break 1. At the end of the battle that this unit attacked, if this unit is successful, which means if you have a unit that has reached 20,000 power or not, then you counterblast 1. And if you do, you choose one of your other Rearguards, you can stand it and it gets plus 4k. So, like I said, does the exact same thing as Crayon Tiger on the Rearguard circle, except you don't draw a card. So, yeah, and you don't have to boost with this card, which can be great too. So our other grade 3 is the old new Bigbelly, the middle new Bigbelly, I guess I would call it, because there's a old Bigbelly, a brand new Bigbelly, and then one that came out in the middle of both of them, and this is the one that came out in the middle. So this is Teacher's Cane of Affection Bigbelly. We ran this as our backup because in the case that you can't get a Mike Saburo or you can't get Astute Bigbelly and you have a grade 3 in your hand, you don't want to ride something else that's not Bigbelly. And the other Bigbelly, in my opinion, is just bad for this type of deck, because you don't want to have to depend on having a board already when your whole shtick is retiring your own board and getting skills and drawing cards. So it has 3 abilities. First one is Vanguard Success 25,000. Second ability is Generation Break 2. All of your units that are successful get plus 4,000 power. Then if you do not have any rear guards, all the cards in your hand get plus 1 grade when you're paying for your stride cost. So you can stride with like a grade 2 and it will be able to make stride happen for you. Then its third ability is during your turn, when your G unit strides, you can counterblast 1. Choose up to 1 card with the success ability from your hand called a rearguard circle. Then you choose one of your rearguards, you can have it gain 4k. If you do at the end of the turn, you draw a card and you retire the unit that you gave 4k to. So pretty solid. Almost does the same thing as Astute Professor Bigbelly, except you have to counterblast 1. So getting into our grade 2 lineup, we run 12 grade 2s. We run 4 Artistic Ocelot. This is one of our new cards from the Zoo booster. It's pretty good. It's pretty much like a Binoculus Tiger for those of you who remember that old card Binoculus Tiger, but it is, the first part of it is not Generation Break, which is awesome for riding it. But the first skill is Vanguard Rearguard Circle once per turn. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can choose one of your other rearguards. You can have it gain 4,000 until the end of the turn, and then at the end of the turn, retire the unit that you gave 4,000 to. The Generation Break 1 skill is an act. This says anytime during your main phase, you can counterblast 1 if you have a Vanguard with Bigbelly in its name. Choose one of your other rearguards, it gets 4,000 power. Then at the end of the turn, you draw a card and you retire the card that you gave 4,000 to. So we have 4 Crayon Tiger up next in our grade 2 lineup. This card is pretty much a staple in every single like Great Nature deck. I'm pretty sure like this card is just way too good not to be run in my opinion. It says when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if it's boosted, you can counterblast 1. Choose one of your other rearguards, restand it, it gets plus 4,000 power. Then at the end of the turn, you draw a card and you retire the unit. So even something that I should note with the cards that are saying draw a card and retire, when you're fighting things like Kagero, it doesn't matter if they retire the unit that you actually use the effect on, you still get to draw a card because you would draw then retire, not retire then draw. So really, really solid card. Then we have 4 Field Glass Otter. Field Glass Otter has 3 abilities as well. The Rearguard Success 20,000 ability. Second ability is Generation Break 1, like we discussed earlier. When this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, choose one of your other rearguards, it gets plus 4,000 until the end of the turn, and then at the end of the turn, you retire that unit. My favorite thing to use that skill on is this card right here, because it just makes sure that this card will retire. You'll draw a card, and you'll get its own skill as well. Then at the end of the turn, if this unit is successful, you can return it to your hand before you would retire it, so that's really good. Then we have 4 Mini Berry. This is our stride fodder, also our way to get into the right Bigbelly if we don't have the Bigbelly we want in our hand, so pretty solid. As our PG, we have Correction Scientist Deli Belly. This is the new Bigbelly PG. It has 3 abilities, Sentinel, the PG ability, and a third ability. Sentinel is you guys can't use more than 4 Sentinels in a deck. You guys know that already. The second ability allows you to guard any unit, PG it, by discarding a card from your hand when you play this card on the guard circle. And then the third ability is when this unit is retired from, or it's Generation Break 1, I should mention that. But it's when it's retired from the guard circle or the rear guard circle. If you have a Vanguard with Bigbelly in its name, you can Soul Blast 1, then you draw 1 card, or you can draw up to 1 card. I don't know why you would never, or I don't know why you would choose to not draw unless you're about to deck out, and you don't want to get yourself to a deck out state. However, I think that for the most part, when you're using the skill, you always want to opt to draw. So you would opt to draw up to 1 card, and then you counter charge 1. So pretty good, keeps your resources alive, and also works like the Victor PG in the Victor deck, where you just can PG a bunch of times and get a bunch of extra cards in your hand and survive something that you normally would not have survived with another PG in your hand. Then we have 4 Honorary Assistant Mike Saburo. So like I said before, this is kind of like our grade 3 searcher. The way that is the effect is during your main phase when this card is placed on the rearguard circle. You choose one of your other rearguards until the end of the turn. It gains an ability, and the ability that it gains is an auto skill that says during your end phase when this unit is put into the drop zone from the rearguard circle. Search your deck for one grade 3 card, reveal it to your opponent, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck. So we do run Telescope Rabbit as our starter, which means that anything can be given 4K and retired at the end of the turn in exchange for counterbusting 1 and resting with Telescope Rabbit. So in the early game, you can play any rearguard boosted by Mike Saburo, and then you can just give the 4K to it from Telescope Rabbit. At the end of the turn, it'll die, and then you'll search your grade 3. So pretty good. Then we run 4 Physical Action Moush. This is the card that I was talking about, combos really well with the Field Glass Otter. It has 2 abilities. The first one is a Success 20,000 ability. The second one is a rearguard once per turn. When this unit boosts until the end of the turn, it gets a skill that says when it's retired from the rearguard circle during the end phase, you can draw a card. And then if it was successful, if it reached the success state when you retired it, then you can put this card on the bottom of your deck. So again, success state is when any unit reaches 20,000. So this unit doesn't have to reach 20,000. I know a lot of people will get confused on that. But basically, like, this card would just allow you to draw one and then put it to the bottom. Helps you recycle and helps you not deck out as well. Then for our starter, we run Telescope Rabbit. I did talk about this before a little bit. It has 2 skills. First one is Forerunner, meaning that it can move back to any rearguard circle when a card is written upon it, like most starters in the game. And then the second ability is Counterblast 1 and rest this unit during the main phase anytime. And then you can choose one of your Great Nature rearguards that your unit gets 4,000 power, and then at the end of the turn you retire that unit. So again, just give one of your units 4,000 into the turn, unless it's Vanguard, retire it. Then we have 12 crit and 4 heal. The reason why we run so many crits is because we don't need to run standard draws. Great Nature draws on its own, so if you run draw triggers, I feel like you're just going to end up decking out. And we don't run stands because everything like that has a skill, like Crayon Tiger, Bigbelly, like they cover the standing part of the deck. So stands wouldn't really be that useful, I would say, especially because if you restand like Astute, Professor, Bigbelly, and it's on the rearguard circle, you're not going to be able to use the other restand skill again. If you could, we would think about running stand triggers, but you can't, so we don't. Sorry guys. Alright, so yeah, 12 crit. We run 4 Approval Frigate, 4 Pong Belly, 4 Ruler Chameleon, and 4 Automatism. Automatism. I almost said Autism Koala. We'll just call it Autism Koala, sure. But yeah, Approval Frigate. Skill during the main phase when it's on the rearguard circle. You can put this card into your soul, choose one of your units to get 3K. Again, just helps you build your soul for, those plural plays, or borrowal, whatever you would like to call it. But it helps you build soul for those plays, and also helps you get 3,000 to a unit so that you can sometimes change a number. Then we have 4 Research Practice member Pong Belly. This is our Bigbelly crit that shoves itself in the soul when the Vanguard attacks, and then you draw a card and your Vanguard gets 5,000. We have Ruler Chameleon. Ruler Chameleon works as a great target, a restand target for Crayon Tiger and Astute Professor Bigbelly when you don't have it, because at the end of the turn, when this card retires or when it dies, you can counterblast 1. You can add another Ruler Chameleon to your hand. So pretty solid. It gives you more padding to survive your opponent's next turn. Then we have 4 Autism Koala. Not really Autism Koala, but you guys know what I mean. This is our new heal trigger that provided we G-Guard when we have one in the drop zone already. We can bind 2 heals, and then we can choose to counter charge or soul charge 1. So pretty good. Starting off our G zone, we run the Ultimate Stride that came out in this set for Zoo Nation, which is Zeroth Dragon of Death Guard and Zoa. Zoa is a pretty good Ultimate Stride in this deck, I would say. You can a lot of times force your opponent into a situation where you're just ready to use Zoa. I did use Zoa in the game, so you guys will see that. But Zoa's skill is Counterblast 2. When this unit is placed on the Vanguard circle, that's when you pay the cost. You draw a card, then you choose a card from your hand, call it to rearguard circle. Until the end of the turn, it gets 2 abilities. The first ability is this unit cannot be chosen by a card effects, and its power will always be 99,999, which is pretty much like quote unquote max power. So it will always be 99,999. And then the other ability that it gains is when this unit deals a damage to your opponent's Vanguard, your opponent loses the game. So if the unit that is Zoa'd, I call it Death Touch. So if it has the Death Touch on it, then whenever it touches your opponent or deals a damage to them, it will just end the game and they'll lose the game. So obviously, you know, you never want to be touched by the rear guard that is powered up by Zoa. Also, since this card cannot be chosen by card effects, you cannot affect the unit with stand triggers or Crayon Tiger or Stoop Professor Bigbelly or things like that nature. You cannot restand the unit. They basically made sure of that because Zoa would have been absolutely broken in Great Nature if you could do that. But yeah, so you can't do that. Then we run 3 of the new stride Omniscience Dragon Barwool. Barwool skill is an axe skill during the main phase. It says Soul Boss 1, choose a card from your G-Zone, turn it face up. Then you choose any number of your front row units and they get a Vanguard Rearguard skill that says on hit draw a card when they hit Vanguard. And then at the end of the turn, or until the end of the turn, those units get plus 4,000 power for each card face up in your G-Zone. And then at the end of the turn, you retire all of your rearguards chosen due to this effect. So obviously, the more Barwools you use later and later into the game, the bigger things get, the harder it gets for your opponent to guard stuff with the restands and the crits, and your opponent just kind of dies, fizzles out. Then we have 2 Mana Garmer in the case. We never used it in our games, but in the case where you notice that your opponent has, you know, they check like double or triple PG, and that's the only way that they would be able to survive your Barwool turn, you can go into Mana Garmer instead. And its skill is activation skill during the main phase. Counter boss 1, choose a Mana Garmer, turn it face up. If the number of face up cards in your G-Zone is 2 or more at this point, which means that's basically G-EB02, choose up to 2 of your rear guards and they get 4,000 power and a skill. The skill that they gain is when this unit attacks a Vanguard. If this unit's power is 20,000 or more after boost, then until the end of the battle, your opponent cannot call grade 1 or greater cards from the hands of the Guardian Circle. So this is great because it does add some guard restrict to your opponent's attacks, and if you have like an astute Professor Bigbelly or a Crayon Tiger on the field, you can force even more out of them, which is awesome. But like I said, every other situation you pretty much want to go into Barwool anyways. We do run 1 Omniscience Dragon Fernigeist. This is pretty much for the Link Joker matchup just because of how this card interacts with Link Joker. So Fernigeist has 2 abilities. The first one is a continuous ability that's not really important, but can be sometimes, I guess. This unit gets plus 4,000 power for each of your rear guards. So if you have 5 rear guards, it gets plus 20k power. It's just a beater for your Vanguard. Not really important because your opponent's either going to PG or not usually. And then for the second ability is the Generation Break 3 ability. This says when this unit is put into the G-Zone from Vanguard Circle, you can counter boss 1, soul boss 1. And then at the end of the turn, you choose all your rear guards, retire them, and then for each card chosen with this effect, you draw a card, counter charge 1, soul charge 1. So the way that it works with Link Joker is that you can unlock all the cards before you would put this card back to the G-Zone, so that when this card does get put back to the G-Zone, you can toggle the effect to, these cards are unlocked at this point, so you can just retire all your rear guards. If you had 5 rear guards, you draw 5, counter charge 5, soul charge 5, but you would do it like draw, counter charge, soul charge, draw, counter charge, soul charge, etc., etc., as many times as you need to use the skill. So pretty solid for clearing our board and making us 1 extra push turn against Link Joker. That's really good. We do run 3 Omniscience Dragon Kilmatika. Kilmatika skill has 2 skills. First one is a Vanguard Success 25,000. The second one is when this unit becomes successful, choose up to 4 cards from your drop zone and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. And then if you put 4 cards on the bottom, choose one of your rear guards, it gets 4k. And then at the end of the turn, you would draw a card and retire the unit. They got 4k. So Kilmatika helps you recycle, helps you not deck out. I feel like I need to run these in this deck because sometimes you have grind games that you would just die because you would deck out, and that's why we don't run draw triggers, etc. So then we have 1 Sabreeze. You guys know the deal. If your opponent tries to greed block you, go into Sabreeze. Then for our G Guardians, we have 2 Box Daughter Spangled. And then we have 2 Sankalpa and 1 Ardillo. What Spangled does is it is our G-Flip Guardian from the Fighters collection that had all the G guards in it. You counterboss 1 and flip a G guard when this unit is placed on the guard circle. Then if you do, you choose any number of your grade 3 or less guardians, and then they gain a skill. This is when they're retired from the guard circle, you can draw a card. So basically what this means is that you want to place a bunch of units on the board to guard first, then you want to G-guard, and then you choose all the units on the, or as many units as you want to. I don't know why you just wouldn't choose all unless you're going to deck out from it, but you choose as many units as you want to, and then at the end of that battle, when your opponent, doesn't hit you, because you'll probably be no passing them if you're using this ability. When your opponent doesn't hit you, you retire all those cards and the G-guard, and then you draw however many cards that weren't spangled on the guard circle. So pretty solid card. Then we run 2 Immortality Professor Sankalpa. This is one of our new cards from the Zoo Booster. It's actually pretty cool as well. It allows you to draw a card for pretty much for free most of the time, just because of how this deck works. But when this unit is placed on the guard circle, you can counterblast 1. If you do, you choose one of your rear guards, and that unit and your Vanguard gets 4,000 power until the end of the battle for each of your open circles without a unit. So this also does work against Link Joker, just because if your circle doesn't have a unit, if your circle has a locked card, that doesn't count as a unit being on your circle. So it does count as an open rear guard circle for the purposes of Sankalpa. But basically, if you have 4 open, you have your starter still there. Your starter will get 16, your Vanguard will get 16, you draw a card, and then you probably just no pass whatever the attack was. So then our last G-Guardian is 1 Head of the Bastion Ardillo. Ardillo's skill is when this unit is placed on guard circle, choose any number of your rear guards, retire them, and then if the number of your open rear guard circle does 3 or more, this unit gets shield plus 10,000. So it can be a 36k guard by itself. A lot of times you won't even have to retire for the skill, because you just will already have 3 open spots. That's just the way that this specific deck build works. And yeah, with that being said, we're going to get right into the Bigbelly games here. We're going to move this over and then load Bigbelly 1. So we're playing against Spike Brothers. Our hand kind of sucks, not gonna lie, because we don't have grade 3. So we ride, we attack, we pass turn, but we ride Field Glass Otter, we call Otter, and then we call Mike Saburo using Mike Saburo's skill on Otter, using Telescope Rabbit on the rear guard Field Otter. End of the turn, Field Otter retires, we get Bigbelly. He uses his starter, then we no guard his Vanguard because we want to be able to use Crayon Tiger in the next turn. We play Bigbelly, use the stride skill to call out. We call, a bunch of cards. We attack a Vanguard first, goes to Soul, draws a card, and then he takes a damage, we draw a card. Crayon Tiger does its thing and then attacks. At the end of the turn, we draw 2 cards, one from Bigbelly, one from Crayon Tiger. Our opponent goes into Agrias here and uses skill of Rising Great Star to call out Prompt Cheetah. We guard both of these attacks. He uses Agrias skill to call the 4 back, so that's why he just restands them. We take a damage. We take a damage from the Prompt Cheetah, and then we take the other damage as well. End of the turn, he puts his cards back, and or he puts his cards back from the charge, and then he puts the other card into Soul Draws. So we're going to Barwool again. Barwool skill gets 12 to the front row. We use the Ocelot skill as well, and the Stride skill. So we check 3 cards. Again, we don't get any triggers, which sucks, but we attack for 25, then 36, then 40. So he does G-Guard, and it takes everything from his hand pretty much. We retire 3 cards, we draw 3 cards, and we search a grade 3 because of the Mike Saburo. So he does go into Dirty Picaro here. And I was kind of scared that I was going to die, even though I have 2 PGs and 3 G-Guardians in my hand, because they have this really dumb combo in this new Spike deck. But I don't think that the combo got used. So we PG'd Vanguard here. He checks 3 cards. 1 is a heal, and the other 2 are stride fodder. So this is something very important to watch out for when your opponent extends like this. You want to remember what they drive check to remember that they didn't drive check a PG pretty much. So we guard with 2 cards, and then we use Spangled skill and the heal trigger skill to unflip a damage and then do the damage, draw 2 for the cards that we guarded with. So then he attacks for 23. We guard with Sankalpa, just vanilla, and then we PG the last card. So then we go into Zoa here. We play Ruler Chameleon. Ruler Chameleon is the Death Touch die card. So we did swing with Ruler Chameleon, which is 99,999, regardless of the number that you guys see there. And then he took it because he couldn't guard it. So that just ended the game automatically just because I auto won from that. So that's why I'm saying it's very important for you guys to realize what your opponent has going on the field in their hand, because that is like the perfect time to Zoa them pretty much. When you realize that either they're at 5 damage and they can't block a 99, or they just don't have a PG in their hand to block the 99. So loading up Bigbelly 2 here, we're playing in Spikes again. This time we have a sort of solid hand. I'd rather not ride a PG, but you know, you do what you got to do. So we ride a PG, we attack for 11, no guard. He rides a 10k, attacks us for 15, no guard. We play Crayon Tiger and Mouse. We use the skill, we have 4k to Mouse. And then he takes double draw trigger on the crit, and then Mouse, we draw 1, Mouse goes to the bottom. He attacks 9 to rear guard twice, and then we no guard Vanguard. He gets a crit, we take 2 damage. We do Bar Wool skill, you know, 4k to everything, then we play the crit trigger. I end up attacking in a weird order that I didn't want to attack in, just so that I could use the crit trigger efficiently. We do trigger heal, however, we draw a card from Bar Wool, and then we attack and he guards. He goes into Agrius, calls Prompt Cheetah, calls another Prompt Cheetah, attacks for 16, then attacks with Agrius, you know, binds 3, calls 2 back, checks 3, 1 is a crit, so we just throw down a crit to guard, we stride into Bar Wool again, we play Astute Professor Bigbelly, we use Otter skill, you know, plus 4k, also the plus 4k went to Bigbelly as well from the stride skill. So we check 3 cards, 1's a heal, we attack for 26. Our opponent G-guards. So he picks back 3 cards, then we attack with the Astute Professor Bigbelly, he gets a draw trigger. And then we attack for 30, so he guards with 3 cards. And then we bounce the Otter to hand and we draw 2. 1 from Mouse and 1 from Bigbelly stride skill. So our opponent goes into Agrius, again right here, plays down a field, attacks with 16, we guard it, attacks with 18, we no guard it, he uses Agrius to call those cards back, so he attacks with Vanguard, we PG, he triple drives and gets no triggers, we use the skill of Deli Belly, Soul Blast 1, counter charge, you know, draw. Then he attacks for 21, uses the skill to call another card, attack for 23, IG guard, and then IG guard again into send Kalpa skill, draw a card. So again, right here I could have Zoa'd, so I look at all my options, I don't have Soul, so I do Zoa, because I didn't see him check a PG. Even though he could have had one, he still wouldn't live just because he would have to guard my other attacks too. So of course I just attack him with the Death Touch, and this is like a scenario that like this is really good for. He's 6 damage heal, but because I hit him, the game is still over. So I do end the game right there from the automatic Death Touch skill, which is pretty stupid if you think about it. Like, just takes away your opponent's whole chance of winning. Like, it's pretty good. Like, it's not as good in Asha or the other Great Nature decks and stuff in my opinion, but it is very, very good in Bigbelly. So then we're loading up Bigbelly Game 3. We're playing against OTT, Susanoo Tankman build. And then we get attacked for 11, we guard it, we get Mike Saburo. We have Artistic Ocelot, so we don't need a kind of loss to do our stuff. And then we search for our grade 3, end of the turn. Our opponent uses Tankman to draw 2 cards, discard 1, uses Ophidian to draw 1, Tankman draw 2, discard 1, Ophidian draw 1. So he's getting a bunch of draw power off. He accidentally drove check 2, so he put one back. Then we used Bigbelly skill to, draw one out, play the crit, into the turn, draw one. He uses Sakia to bounce everything. He uses the Psychic Bird to draw a card, Ophidian, draw a bunch of cards. We know guard Vanguard. He does hit 1 crit trigger, crit Vanguard, power to rear guard. Then he attacks us for 26, we PG. He has a bunch of cards in his hand, so we're not really sure how we're going to go about finishing him. We go into Barwol. We try to give power to our front row. We use Ocelot skill as well. We attack for 35, which is a number. He PGs. We check 3 criticals, like the sack that we are. And then we attack for 39, 2 crit. He does G-Guard. If he wouldn't have had these G-Guards in his hand, I think he would have died looking at his hand now that I see it. But he did have 3 G-Guardians in his hand, so that's just unfortunate for me. But we do draw a bunch of cards at the end phase, so that's pretty tight. But then he goes into Ichihishima, and this card is super stupid because I can't guard with grade 0s or G guards, so I have like a bunch of grade 0s in my hand, and he knew that just because I just checked triple crit. So that's the bad thing about checking triggers in this deck, or against this deck of OTT, is like if you check triggers, sure, you're super lucky, but unless those triggers were heals, it's almost like it doesn't mean anything because you're not going to be able to guard with them, or use them in any way. If you healed, at least if you healed a damage, it would have been worth checking in my opinion. However, if you checked the heal and you didn't even heal a damage, then it's still not worth it. But yeah, we end up losing because we can't guard it. My original plan was to guard with Bigbelly, PG, and then use the skill to draw one and hopefully get into another PG, and then 6 damage heal the Vanguard attack and hope that he doesn't check any criticals, which he didn't. And then we PG'd the last Nanase, and we go for a Barwol intern or a I say or Zoa, but I know that he has PGs in his hand, so I wouldn't go for Zoa. I would just go for a really strong Barwol turn with these Crown Tigers in my hand. But yeah, unfortunately I did lose. So yeah, that was game 3. And yeah, with that being said, that has been the FutureFight for the G-EB02 Bigbelly deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like on the video. It helps a lot more than you guys think. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell button as well that's next to the subscribe button, so that you can tell whenever new videos are posted, and to support the channel as well. Make sure you check out our social medias in the description down below, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And if you want to support the channel a little more than liking and subscribing, then there are also those ways, which are our Patreon and our merch store. But with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.